Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.
Yo. Wait a minute. How the hell is a horse gonna put an egg together? Have you seen their hands? But for realsies, we ain't working on no egg today. We're working on an egg-colored Fender Mustang bass. Introduced in 1966, Fender Mustang bass is a short 30-inch scale bass made for students, but it has a surprisingly storied past with lots of famous players. We've got Chaz Chandler of The Animals, Tom York from Radiohead, Tina Weymouth from Talking Heads, and perhaps most famously, a Fender Mustang bass belonging to Bill Wyman of the Rolling Stones is the most expensive bass ever sold at auction. Now, my Mustang bass sold for $383,800 less than that, but it's still cool, so let's get into it. Without employing even a modicum of hyperbole. Okay, Mr. Thesaurus.
Actually, it's Dr. Thesaurus.
I have to tell you how excited I am to get to this project. This is the first guitar of any variety I ever owned. It is a 1973 or 74 Fender Mustang. The reason I say or is because there's some crossover in the serial numbers, and this falls right in that crossover period. This guitar is special to me not just because it was my first guitar I ever owned, but because it was a gift to me from a very, very dear friend named Linda Wielden, who was one of my mothers. Not in a sister wives way, more in like we had a very tight community and she was one of the matriarchs of it. She passed away 2.5 years ago as of making this video, and I loved her dearly, and I was fortunate enough to play bass fortuitously at her celebration of life. So I think it was around 1993 or 94, and Linda called me and she was like, "Do you want to go look at a bass guitar in New Minas, Nova Scotia?" I was like, sure, that sounds exciting. Now, Linda had 4 sons of her own, and each of them musically inclined, several of them in that video you just saw. And yet she reached out to me to see if I wanted to come with her, and she bought me this bass. That's the kind of person she was. She was like, well, I bet Levon would like to play some music too. And she made time for everyone in her life, and I was fortunate enough to be one of those people. Okay, I'll try and stop emoting. A side note about the expedition to New Minas to buy the bass. The man selling it was very much symbolically passing on his dreams and letting go of them, and he welled up with tears as he made the deal and sold me his bass. Side note to a side note, New Minas is hideous. Let's have a look at this bass. Whoopsies, it's windy out here, so I'm going to do a voiceover. The pickups are very low output, leading me to believe at least one coil is dead. The fretboard and frets are pretty bad. A lot of the frets are popping up. There's some glue residue from previous attempts to keep them down, but these were not adequate. Other than that, you know, we got some extra holes here from the number of times this moved around. Nothing we can do about that, really. A little bit of damage from somebody adjusting the truss rod in situ. And the bass is refinished in a white, but I bought it or got it in 92, 93, 94. I can't even remember exactly. But I think I remember seeing a hint of competition red underneath, but I like the white. Okay, so the frets are all popping up, but they're in good condition. So I'm thinking after I pull them out, I'll clean out the slots, give them a new radius, clean up the fretboard, and then put the original frets back in. Okay, about the bass and how it sounds and plays. The frets being all screwed up means it's super buzzy, and it sounds like we've got a dead coil because the amp is up pretty loud and this is all we're getting. You can hear all the buzz too. So let's pull the frets and get to work. You gotta love these safety string tuners. I wonder if Kluson made these. This neck's been off a few times. These screws are pretty brutalized. Really disappointing cheese pull on that neck removal. Also note that this neck is flat sawn, exactly flat sawn, as opposed to quarter sawn, and appears to have held up fine. Selfie stick. If you try to glue down vintage frets in a vintage fretboard, there's going to be corrosion and dirt, and it's simply not going to stick no matter what you do. And so you have to thoroughly clean out everything. You need to clean off the fret, you need to clean out the slot, and then you may attempt to glue it down. Buggy, pick your nose. My OCD fam may have noticed the 11th fret never went in. And that's because it was the only one that was successfully glued in, so this is the one we're going to heat up with a soldering iron like many of you have seen before. You'll have noticed some chip out, but that's, I mean, that one's fresh, but these ones are very old, so some of these frets have came out before. You can see there's the tarnishing and glue inside of them. Of course. These fender nuts are the worst design. Now, miraculously, with no tension, the neck is pretty much perfectly straight. There's no twist, there's no bow, there's no fall away. So we're going to proceed with a little bit of brief leveling just to clean it up. I saw some guitar YouTuber video talking about how Brazilian rosewood dust is valuable, but it's really not valuable per se. It's just useful for filling in divots and fretboards. Now, even though the frets came out pretty smoothly and they maintained most of their radius, they are a little shy of the 7.25 that's standard on Fender. So I have this set of modified pliers. You see how it's got a little slot for the tang and a little groove for the top of the fret wire. And I use that just to impart a little more radius. And then I check it against my gauge, and I actually want it to be a little bit tighter than 7.25 so that the edges aren't inclined to pop up once I install it. So I'll do a little bit on either end, and I will do that with every one of them. You do have to be quite careful with these, because if you put any sort of kink in the fret, then that's going to be inclined to pop up itself. So you just want to give gentle pressure evenly. Oh yeah, there you can see the hints of the competition red. So let me show you what I mean about it being 73 or 74. So first I went to Fender.com and they didn't have it. So now I'm at TrueVintageGuitar.com. I found it on the neck plate. 73 or 74, Fullerton. Here we go. So 73, 73, 74. It's right in that zone there. It's 502, 218. So I lost the footage of pulling out the original pickups. They were spliced in. They had already been cut out, probably during paint. That seems like the baby boomers special. Instead of desoldering them, they would just cut the wire in half and then twist it back together when they were done painting. Beautiful, beautiful coil wire. I love that dark purple color. Okay, I actually got no reading out of either coil. Now, I'm pretty sure these pickups should have around 5K ohms of resistance. And I don't have any what I assume would be 44 AWG wire to get that sort of resistance out of this size coil. But I do have some 1980s Japanese Squier bullet bass pickups. I don't love the idea of non-originality, but until I can get appropriate coil wire for these, I'm just going to bag them up safely and use my Squier bullet pickups. They are some of the most faithful Mustang copy pickups you can get. They've got the full-length Alnico magnets, unlike the later Squier pickups, which I also have a set of. Let me show you. Alright, these are the later ones. Ooh, they weigh hardly anything. Ooh, the spacing is also narrower. I don't really remember what these are for. but these are the Squire bullet covers. It occurs to me that I should try to reflash the solder joints on the pickups to see if I get a reading after that. And maybe I can pull the wire off the coil and reuse it. It looks like they're kind of lacquer dipped or something. It's not wax. So we'll see. Now this is stamped 17042, but I am pretty positive that's just a part number. So you can see the tiny hair wire coming there to both ends, but this one's still reading dead. Ooh, looks like we're getting something out of this one. Ran out of room on my camera, and yeah, that one coil came back to life when I reflashed the solder joints, and it's around 4.8.
Lloyd's the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you die. This video brought to you by Lloyd's. Lloyd's! Don't drink it. If you're new here, I should mention, this is not brought to you by Lloyd's. I am not sponsored. But I have had this one can for about 10 years, and it's still more than half full. So it's a good value. I thought it was expensive at like 15 bucks, but damn. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Interestingly, on this tailpiece here, they seem to have gone for quantity over quality. These are all very small screws. The main screws seem to be identical to the pickguard screws, and then there's these 4 additional dinky little guys. And there's our ground wire and the various other places it's been over the years. I'm going to clean up the top so I can start putting pieces back on as they're ready, starting with the bridge plate. Tan lines. It turns out that we've got 4 stripped out holes. So we're gonna have to fix that. I suppose since it's a through body stringing, the bridge tailpiece here doesn't really have that much tension on it. So all these tiny screws are definitely adequate. Why they decided to use 11 is anybody's guess. I cleaned up the screws and the springs and the barrels, and they all pretty much look exactly the same as when I started. And so, too bad. And of course, we've got our longer screws and longer springs on the treble side because they require less intonation compensation.
Have you been given a guitar with improper intonation? You may be entitled to compensation.
I washed all the components of the tuners, but they look pretty much exactly the same as when I started. And so I'm just gonna put them back together, and that's that. Sadly, I don't own an arbor press, so I have to go out to my drill press to press in frets. So I'm gonna first try hammering them in and see how that goes.
Hammer time!
The fret hammering didn't work at all, so we're gonna go out to the drill press with our little press jig thingy, whatever these are called. This is not going well. I may end up pulling them and doing a full new fret job. Fail. The advantage of putting in new frets is you make them oversized and you can hammer down the corners, because this board is kind of rolled at the edge. It's like a 7.25 radius, but then the very edge is even more of a dip. So I think I'm just gonna go with new frets, sadly.
Here is my homemade fret bender. This is a can opener handle. These are some skateboard bearings. This is a piece of white oak that I cut out of my tenor guitar that you saw in the last video. And this is an adjustment screw that's in a little crooked but still works. And I bent it to a radius slightly tighter than our 7.25. And take a spare piece of fret wire, clip out a V here, and then file off the tang barbs, and that is your depth gauge for the slots. Double check every slot very carefully, especially the ends, and resaw them as necessary. And I cut them all oversized so that I can hammer down the ends for those rolled fretboard ends. Let's see if we can do this one with a hammer.
Hammer time!
It worked!
And like I said, because there's a little roll on the edge, you can use the oversized sides to wrap it around. And I got this handsome little guy to support underneath where I'm hammering on the round parts of the frets. I mean, neck.
On some fretboards, it works to hammer one side, then the other side, and then hammer in the middle. But on this one, I'm finding it's best to go from one side all the way through the middle and then over to the other side. Thank frickin' frick this is going smoothly, because I was getting very frustrated with this fret job.
Sometimes the fret won't be bent enough, so I pull out my handheld fret bending pliers here. You can also use these to hold frets if you're going to do semi-hemispherical pre-ground ends.
Stop. Hammer time.
They're all hammered in, but now I'm gonna take a break and have some coffee because my face is sweating. Not that the coffee will help with that. And then I'll come back and double check that they're seated. First, I'm gonna wick in extra light super glue, or extra thin, I should say, to all the ones that are properly seated and let that dry, and then I'll work on the ones that aren't. You're gonna want a whip tip for this because you just can't get a small enough drop out of the normal end of their super glue bottle. Here's another DIY tool that can save you a bundle. I just drilled a hole in one of these clamps and I bought this set of cauls with the little base. And voila. The quick grip is not quite strong enough for some applications. Not like a vice grip, so you may think about using a different type of clamp. But it works for this one. You know the old phrase, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades? Well, it also counts in fretwork for basses. The windings are so coarse compared to guitar strings, and there are no plain strings that, and you're not really bending. Generally, most bass players aren't bending their notes. And so near perfect is good enough. You don't need to be at a high polish. Well, the fretwork is done, and now it needs a nut, but nuts to that, let's do something easy. Let's put the tuners back on. Okay, when I snapped, all the screws were supposed to be in and it was magically done, but a lot of them are stripped out, so it's taking a long time and it's a pain in the ass. So much for a fun and easy, cheesy. Ta-da! But seriously, Fender, WTF is up with this? You make the weakest part of the guitar, the part that takes 200 pounds of tension, and you make it out of brittle material. This one's plastic. They're often bone, but they always crack right where the strings are pressing directly down on the weakest part of them. It's thin, it's radiused, it's stupid. Half the time I make these, they crack in half the moment I put the strings on. And this is one way to rectify it. Solid brass. Let's see if we got any bass strings. No. Come on, man. Oh well, they're down here. Do we want to go regular slinky or flat wound? Crap, I was just deciding which strings to use, and I only have short scale and long scale, and apparently the Mustang bass, because it's string through body, takes a medium scale, so I might have to go buy some. But I'm gonna put the neck on and check to see if either of the sets of short scale I have will work. I need some love like I never had a love before. I had a little love, now I'm back for more. Set your spirit free, it's the only way to be. Lol. Chromes won't do. The Ernie balls have no taper. Oh, they do. Never mind. Yeah, that's not gonna work either. Instead of going to the store, I'm just gonna try these full-length strings. And what if you just ignore the taper and have the windings go around the tuner? Is that bad? I'm gonna just try it because that'll save me an hour. It might cost me more time in the long run, but... All right, that seems fine. The only sharp angle is on the taper, and these are nice wide posts. It seems like I won't have an issue using these long scale. I don't have specific bass nut files, so I just use a variety of round and semi-round files. On this bass, I'm leaving about 3 tuners length of extra winding length, so that's 1, 2, 3 right there for the D string. I put on all the strings just to get the layout so I can mark the nut and file the rest of the slots. Okay, dear me, I just had to spend a few days camping and then spent all day at a track meet. And now I am back in the workshop, crumbs in my beard, and I'm finally gonna get this bass done. I am going to put in those 80s Squire pickups for the time being because I do not have time to fuck around with that original windings and rewind it. So we'll get to that later, but I want to get this video done, the bass done, do some demos, because this week is
Slammed! Slammed!
First up, reattach the grounds here.
Get over here.
I added a thumbtack there. Did I already show you that? Pretty classy. Since we're half-assing it, we're just going to splice into these leads. They're color-coded the same as the originals, sort of. I mean, this is a cloth pushback wire, yellow. We're just going to go splice them in, and then when we put the original pickups back in, I think these leads will actually reach, but if not, I will find matching wire and redo them. Now, I see some red paint on the shielding. I wonder if the red was not original either. Curious. Speaking of competition red, do you like my sunburn? Now, I don't know if they came with springs, but I'm gonna cut these two in half and use each half for each adjustment screw. Should be enough tension. It may have used like rubber hosing, I'm not sure, but here we go. Ooh, these are not the cutters for this spring. Okay, no spoilers, but you're gonna hear the bass when I'm setting intonation, and here you'll see where we're at. So we're coming in sharp. So because it's sharp, we're gonna back the saddle off a little bit. So we're going to loosen the screw and move the saddle forward. And so forth. I'll be right back. Okay, that does it for another video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Linda. Thank you to Patreon patrons. Thank you to YouTube members. Thank you to everybody who watches and supports the channel. And I guess that's lights out. See you next time.